Okay, I know my purpose was to answer the question and answer boxes, but for whatever reason, I only went through like 3 question and answers. So I'll make sure I go through those question and answer boxes on my stories so that nobody misses them. And I'll just kind of like leave this open for questions. So if I missed your question, it's not because I'm ignoring it. I honestly didn't see it because I'm like way back in the questions. So ask it again and I will happily answer it. I haven't had a chance to go to the chiropractor yet, and I've been having this thing where, like, I sleep, okay, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm a stomach sleeper, which is honestly the worst thing that you can be for your alignment. You know, I'm like, your alignment is so important, and when you sleep on your stomach, you're kind of like this constantly, and then I'll, like, also sleep on my side, and I've been having this, like, thing where my chest, I like need to crack my sternum almost, and so when like I crack my neck, like this will crack and it freaks me out. I haven't been able to make it to my chiropractor yet, but he's gonna be like, what did you do? It's like, I don't know what I did. Is there a way to determine if we have hepatic liver, insulin resistance of the liver? Not really. I mean, you can kind of look at like blood sugar. Some people, like for me personally, like after I was keto for a while and I started like going back to eating carbohydrates and like healing my body, my liver would hurt. I would actually like and it wasn't like hurting like a major pain, but it would like ache. I would feel my liver aching. And like, I don't know, I'm like, sometimes I will feel that if I let my blood sugar get too low and I go too long without eating. So I do think like I kind of did, I don't know if that was like a sign of insulin resistance or like my liver was just having a very hard time storing sugar. But yeah, I mean, unless you got like a test for it, and I think that would be like fatty liver test, I don't know how you would know if you had hepatic insulin resistance. But usually based on your history, you can know if you maybe have like a history of things, for example, like a really low carb diet or running off of fat for too long will cause hepatic insulin resistance. Like there have been studies that show that is what happens. It's how you get into ketosis. So those are things that like you want to kind of evaluate your history. Just a thought, if fat cells are high in PUFAs and progesterone cream is used, could this be a reason why it's reacted poorly? Oh yeah. So like I've talked about before, like estrogen accumulation happens in the tissues. The fat cells will store a lot of toxins. Think of your fat cells as like little safe houses. When your body's not detoxifying properly or doesn't have enough of the nutrients or minerals or capacity to detoxify for whatever reason, it's under a lot of stress, it will kind of say, we'll save that for later. And the fat cells are an awesome, really safe place for your body to store junk. And so keep in mind, your body can store PUFAs, polyunsaturated fats in there, but estrogen can be in there, heavy metals can be in there. Oh yeah. So yeah, in theory, using progesterone will stimulate the release of estrogen, but I don't see why it wouldn't stimulate maybe the release of polyunsaturated fats either. Because keep in mind, progesterone does speed up the metabolism. And this is why you'll find, like in my posts, I commonly talk about how it's not a good idea to implement bioidentical progesterone until you have the lifestyle habits to back it up. Meaning that you're eating frequently, you're keeping your blood sugar stable. Because if you're not eating the fuel to, fuel a body that's having, sorry, I'm saying this horribly. You're taking progesterone, so you're speeding up your metabolism, and then you don't have the fuel to back it up, you're gonna feel worse before you feel better. And so that's why I'm always saying like blood sugar first, lifestyle habits first, and then if you still need progesterone, that would be a more appropriate time than just implementing it and hoping it solves all your issues. But yeah, I definitely could see it has a potential opening up of PUFAs. And remember, when you start to eat in a different way or like pro-metabolic, like I teach in Fully Nourished, you can absolutely, remember, it takes about 4 years to deplete PUFAs from your tissues. And so if you have a long history of like eating lots of processed foods, growing up on processed foods, or taking tons and tons of fish oil, like I know people that have mega dosed fish oil, all of those PUFAs are stored in your fat cells. And you want to know why? Because your body likes to utilize its favorite fats first. And it likes to use saturated fats and sometimes monounsaturated fats. It stores PUFAs because it's just like meh. And that should show us just in that alone how superior saturated fats are for us. Our body likes to use those to protect the cell and make hormones. And will just store PUFAs in the fat cells. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility. The same happens with me. Oh my gosh, my weird chest crack is I'm not alone. Oh God. Thank you for that. Sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I think like I'm dying. Because sometimes it'll make me feel like I can't breathe deeply. Progesterone oil rubbed on gums bypass the need for cofactors. I don't think progesterone really has cofactors. I just think like sometimes people will react poorly to it because they're not like doing the right lifestyle factors. So if that is something that you react poorly to, then you might need to do a little bit more work before you implement it again. But yeah, I don't think you need to like be like, oh, I need all my cofactors first. Like some people really need progesterone and they need it now and they do really well with implementing it. I just think for the people that are like, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. Okay, let's reevaluate. Like let's think about what could possibly be going wrong than just like blaming the progesterone. Low cholesterol and low testosterone. 34-year-old male tips. Yeah, so low cholesterol shows that you're probably manufacturing a lot of hormones. Remember, cholesterol is the building block of hormones, and then you use thyroid hormone, vitamin A, and red light to convert cholesterol into sex hormones, so DHEA, progesterone, and cortisol. And then DHEA will convert into estrogen and testosterone. And so if you have low cholesterol, your body's utilizing it to make something, and it's not testosterone. So what is it? It's not progesterone, it's cortisol, it's stress. So for a male who has low testosterone and low cholesterol, low cholesterol and low testosterone, very similar to what I talk about here for my lady friends. Get that blood sugar balanced. Eat more food, eat more nutrients, make sure you are eating within an hour of waking up, really optimally 30 minutes, eating a nice, big, nourishing meal that contains protein, carb, and fat, and keeping that blood sugar steady every 3 hours. Now, I say, like, men are gorgers and women are grazers, right? Like, women we like to like, be a little more snacky, or like, yeah, I'm bored, let's eat. Oh, I'm not feeling great, let's eat. Oh, I'm angry, let's eat. Whereas, like, men are kind of like, they eat a big meal, and then they're just like, ah. But when men are under stress or their T is low, they tend to need a little bit more support. We need to treat ourselves like grazers before we can be gorgers again. So men don't tend to have to keep blood sugar balanced in that way for long, but they do need to eat every 3 hours when they're in a situation like yours. I would make sure you really are focusing in on those saturated fats. You're making sure you're getting enough carbohydrates in the form of roots and fruits, and a lot of animal protein. Men thrive off of animal protein, especially like grass-fed beef and bison. Ruminant animals are very important for them. So those are kind of the two things I would just recommend, like eating every 3 hours for a while, making sure you're eating within an hour of waking up, eating a bedtime snack, and then once you're feeling better, you'll probably start to sleep better. I don't know what your workout routine looks like. I'm considering, I'm thinking that if you're low in testosterone, you're probably going to be strength training and wanting to grow muscle. And I would say for a period of time, make sure you're not overtraining, make sure to not push it. I usually recommend like 5x5 training. I actually had a student in my Fully Nourished program like bring it to my attention. Now I'm like recommending it to everybody because it can be really a great way to build strength, build muscle, but it doesn't overexhaust your body, and you have a rest day every other day. So I would not overtrain for a little bit, allow your body to replenish yourself, and then, let's say 2 months or 3 months in the future, your testosterone is going to be higher, your cholesterol is going to be more normal, and you're going to have a much easier time building up muscle because you're not in such a depleted state. It's almost like you're going against a raging river and you're just trying to go upstream, and it's like, it's not going to work. You're going to maybe go like 1 inch at a time. Just stop fighting, go with the flow, and then you'll be stronger in a couple months and you'll be able to do what you set out to do in the first place. Is ACV bad if you have H. pylori then? Enzymes okay with HCl? Just kind of depends on the person. I don't really recommend hydrochloric acid supplementation, but things that increase stomach acid are a different story. It's just very important to like be aware that you have H. pylori, so you're not taking like massive doses of stomach acid and giving yourself an ulcer. I haven't seen it happen, honestly. I've had many people come to me taking HCl and have H. pylori, and they are fine. They just told us in school to not do it. So I've kind of stuck to that. I don't sweat when I exercise and it concerns me. Thoughts or suggestions? Yeah, it should concern you. Usually it's your body trying to keep as many minerals in. Like a lot of times it's a sign of either like hypothyroidism or what they would call adrenal fatigue. So making sure you're focusing on minerals and nutrients and lowering stress. You might not be at a place where you should be exercising too much, but the goal would be to get to a point where you are sweating, because sweating during a workout is a good sign. How do you test or know if you have decreased stomach acid? You're not digesting food well, so you're seeing like undigested food in your stool, or like you have a history of things that would lower HCl, like a vegan diet or being vegetarian. Sometimes when I run a GI map with clients, they have a marker called elastase, and elastase, if that's low, usually if it's lower than 500, there's some type of digestive support needed. So it just kind of depends on the situation. I can usually tell when someone needs stomach acid because they're not digesting protein well. Fats are kind of just sitting in their stomach. Like they're not digesting heavier foods very well at all. Eating every 3 hours doesn't raise insulin levels. I do snack every 3 hours when I'm scared to, as I've heard people say that it will cause weight gain. Honestly, I think going long periods of time without eating will cause weight gain long term. So keep in mind, guys, that our insulin secretion is our pancreas is secreting insulin. Keep in mind that insulin resistance has nothing to do with insulin levels and has everything to do with your cell's sensitivity to insulin. What wrecks your cell's sensitivity to insulin? It's going to be stress, cortisol, adrenaline. It's going to be magnesium deficiency. It's going to be hypothyroidism. It's going to be estrogen dominance. And oh, look at that. What bothers the thyroid? Oh, not having enough fuel. What affects estrogen detoxification? Oh, having an unhealthy liver that needs enough fuel. What makes you secrete more cortisol? Oh, not having enough fuel. So I'm looking at how your hormones are going to affect your cell's uptake or sensitivity to insulin. And once you actually fix your stress levels, a lot of times the hyperinsulinemia or your excessive secretion of insulin will go away because your cells are now sensitive to even the most minute levels of insulin. So if your blood sugar, if you don't manually balance your blood sugar, your body's going to do it for you with stress hormones. Just like that's kind of like the mindset is stop acting like not eating is doing anything to your blood sugar. Your body's going to make blood sugar then. You're running off of sugar regardless of if you're eating it or not. Corn, avoid it always because it can cause inflammation, or is it okay to have fresh corn and avoid the processed varieties? Yeah, I think it's just dependent on the person. You know, the corn flour, masa harina, is very good. It's usually not very modified. It tends to be digested pretty well. So if you can find corn tortillas made out of that, that's awesome. Like I just had a tostada made out of corn tortillas, literally for dinner. So I would fry those in coconut oil to avoid the PUFAs. But yeah, usually fresh corn is going to probably be a better option, and it really depends on the person. It's always in context. You know, for example, there's going to be someone that literally gets horrible digestive bloat from corn, and then someone that can digest it no problem. So it's probably going to be mostly relying upon the gut and digestive capacity. You know, the better quality and the higher functioning your gut is, the more you'll be able to handle things like grains and starches no problem, which corn is going to be a grain. It's starchy. Best tests for accurate neurotransmitter levels. I guess an organic acids test would be good for that. You can kind of see what's going on. If you already have tested your hormones and you don't really need that, then I guess the Dutch test wouldn't be something. But the Dutch test has a few neurotransmitters that I like norepinephrine, dopamine, like B12, B6. Like it has some good neurotransmitters. But I would say if you're looking for neurotransmitters, an organic acids test like the Genova Diagnostics is probably going to be your best bet. Raw carrot salad, time saving to buy it already shredded, but should I stay away from bagged pre-shredded? You know, it's one of those things where if you have to shred it yourself and you're not going to consume it, it's probably better to just buy it shredded. But it's always not a great idea to buy like a pre-shredded or like pre-cut things, because it does allow more like bacteria to grow and histamines to be released from the food. Once you cut things, they have a completely different like profile than something that's fresh. So it's just, again, it's like very different for every person. If you like truly can't shred something or find the time to shred it, then buy it. But if you're just kind of saying like, I'm just kind of being lazy, or like you don't feel like it, I would shred it yourself if you can. But again, it's always in context of your life. And if you're not going to do something because it's too hard or it's just hard to make it happen, then by all means buy it. Do you have suggestions for bladder pain with dairy? Trying A2 milk, better for my tummy, but bladder feels heavy. It's really interesting. I'm wondering if, I'm not really sure. I don't want to like say like, oh yeah. Maybe some ideas would be like there's some gut issues going on, some bacteria's maybe made it into the bladder already. I don't know if you've ever had like urinary tract infections chronically, or like IC. That's something that I would maybe consider. Maybe like the milk's feeding bacteria or yeast that has made it into the urinary tract. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Like, please don't take this as fact or Bible. I'm just kind of like brainstorming here. I'm wondering if maybe something like that is going on, or maybe the proteins, you're having a really hard time breaking down the proteins, and so that's maybe something that's making it through the kidneys. Maybe the kidneys need support. So honestly, I'm not sure, but those are some things I would maybe consider. Maybe you're just like, it's not really good for you at this time. Like, it's just you're having a hard time breaking it down. What do you think of L-theanine and stress tea for anxiety support? I don't know what stress tea is. Never heard of that. But L-theanine tends to be pretty anti-stress. How long did it take for your hair to adjust to Moroccan products? My hair is extra oily since I've been using the past few days. Oh yeah, sorry. It's like the worst part of it. I would say like it probably took me, I'm trying to think because it was so long ago, like a month or two. Right now, like I've been using it a little bit, like solely Morocco method for a month now. Like I got into this bad habit where I was like kind of like not using it as frequently, or I was using it intermittently with Acure Organics, and Acure is a very lathering shampoo. So I've kind of had to go through like the detox myself. So it's been like, I mean, this is like day 4, so I'm not like super oily, but I'm definitely wouldn't be like, oh, we're going out tonight. I would probably wash my hair. But yeah, it did take a while, and bentonite clay masks helped. Using my borax rinse helped. But yeah, it took a little while. I would say like a month or 2 for sure. I missed your response when you started over about PCOS and HA, possible combination. I didn't see that question, so I'm glad you asked it again. But PCOS and hypothalamic amenorrhea, like I don't see how that could be a possible combination. Like you have either or. Your missing periods is either being caused by what's going on with PCOS, or you have hypothalamic amenorrhea and it's causing polycystic ovaries. They're 2 separate things. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, there are certain things that you have to have for your doctor to diagnose you. One of those is androgenic symptoms or high androgens on a test. One of those is either inovulatory cycles or the appearance of polycystic ovaries. And I think it's also, what else is it? Like irregular, like I can't remember. There's 3, oh my gosh. I'm spacing. There's like 3 guidelines that you need in order to be diagnosed with PCOS. And I think a lot of women with HA tend to be diagnosed with PCOS because the ovaries can appear polycystic when you have hypothalamic amenorrhea. It doesn't mean you have PCOS. Polycystic ovaries simply means there's like your ovaries are on their way to ovulation, but they're not quite showing up yet. So, or they're not quite making it to ovulation. They're all kind of racing there. So I don't see how that could be possible. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor, but I think, personally, I would think it would be either or. Do you think supplementing with vitamin D3 is helpful for the body and balance hormones? You guys know I'm not a big fan of supplementing lots of D3 because it can be really calcifying. A lot of people with low vitamin D have calcification, low magnesium, low boron, low lithium, low rubidium. They have a need for a lot of other minerals, and their body has actually lowered vitamin D for a very specific purpose. So it really depends. It's all about context. It's not one of those things where like it's so bad or like, oh, it's so amazing. It really depends on the person and where their other minerals are at. Do you align with Matt Blackburn's philosophy that lipofuscin is iron plus PUFA poisoning? Yeah, definitely. I do think estrogen also plays a role, just because keep in mind, like, whenever like women take hormonal birth control and then have like excessive sun exposure, they tend to get melasma. So I don't want to say like all the time, but that is something that they warn, like, for example, when you go lay in a tanning bed or something like that, they say like if you're on hormonal birth control, this can cause like hyperpigmentation. So hyperpigmentation or like any type of lipofuscin is going to be deep within the melanin producing pigment cells, and there's something going on there that's causing the pigment to be made. And so yeah, I do believe it has a lot to do with iron and polyunsaturated fats, just because polyunsaturated fats like react so poorly with the sun. What is your favorite source of animal protein? Like, it would be even between, like, personally, like, what I enjoy would be, like, a steak. But, what I think is probably, like, the best is, like, a grass-fed beef liver. Do I love it? No. Is it really healthy for you? Yeah. I tried some natural desiccated thyroid, and it made me feel weird and sleepy. Could have been too much too soon. Absolutely, or it could just be it could just be not for you. Some people, like, they aren't really, it's not a good time for them. Their body's not quite ready for it, or they just don't need it. So everyone's a little different, but if it makes you feel weird, it's always a good idea to listen to your body. What type of water filter system do you use? I get asked this a lot, and honestly, if I could change it, I would, but years ago, I didn't know what I know now, and so if I was to do it again, I would either buy the Pristine Hydro or the Pure Effects water filter. I personally have an Aquasana, but now I know that there's a lot of acids in water that a lot of water filters don't filter out, and so I would really love a filter that actually filters acids out as well. So if I was to do it again, it would be the Pristine Hydro, but I personally have an Aquasana, and I'm not going to like replace it until it takes a dump. Do you suggest people who take thyroid meds in the AM wait an hour to eat or half hour meds to be taken on an empty stomach, but I'm always so hungry before the full hour is up? I think 30 minutes is adequate. I guess you can, check with your doctor about that, but keep in mind, if your thyroid's being sped up and you're not eating anything, what are you eating? Because you're eating something. Hi Jess, what levels of progesterone do you like to see? How about for fasting glucose and insulin? For fasting glucose, it just kind of depends on where your other hormones are. I think it's always in context. Of course, you would like to see it like at a really balanced level, but that's going to be different for every person. And then insulin levels, like usually below, like I think they say like what's normal is under 8, but like 5 is optimal. So it just kind of, again, depends on what somebody else's or what people's hormones are looking like. For me, I'm not like, oh God, your insulin levels are so high, let's get those down. It's more like, why is your insulin so high? Like your body's not responding very well to insulin. So you just kind of use it as a clue, but it's always in context of other things. And then when it comes to progesterone, usually like 8 nanograms per deciliter is the best, or around 8. But again, I can't like give a blanket recommendation because I don't know what measurements your lab uses. So usually the common measurement would be like 8. And that would be after ovulation. I get that I'm losing some fat can be a stressor, but if I'm feeling good most days, what can we do to try and shed some needed fat? Do I just keep working on health and hope the last 20 pounds fall off? Well, usually my recommendation would be to be in a deficit a little bit, like be in a calorie deficit just a tad bit. And sorry, I'm like my tripod. And to lower fats a little bit and keep carbs and protein at a good level. But you have to make sure you're insulin sensitive enough for that. So But to lose fat, the best thing we can do is to be in a slight calorie deficit and then just kind of manipulate our macronutrients. Remember, carbohydrates are going to be the most energy consuming calories to burn. So if you're eating a lot of carbs, you're burning carbs to actually use those carbs. Or burning calories to use those carbs, I should say. So protein, amino acids should always remain the same. Amino acids are the building blocks of your body, of your muscles. And so if you're ever wanting to lose fat, you always got to keep protein steady to keep continuing to build muscle, because muscle is going to eat up free fatty acids. Funny fact about muscle, your muscles love PUFAs, they love free fatty acids. They will pull them from the bloodstream, which helps with insulin sensitivity, because now your other cells aren't having to take on the brunt of that. They're going to uptake glucose instead, but your muscles tend to like free fatty acids. So muscle is important, so keeping protein steady, but usually to get like fat loss, lowering fats a little bit and upping carbs, or just kind of like lowering fats to get yourself into a deficit slightly is very helpful. It does take some macro manipulation to get to a certain leanness for women. I'm 5'8" and 170-ish, could afford to shed a bit for sure. Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on your body fat percentage. I don't know what your lean mass is. I don't know, like, what you're looking like. Like, usually for someone, every client's a little different, but for my clients that are working on, like, those fine-tuning or getting them really lean, they're willing to count macros. They're at a good place for health, that they're just like, I'm doing awesome. Let's just get me nice and lean and mean. Then what we're going to do is we're going to really start to manipulate. And we're going to manipulate macronutrients in order to get the body burning well and get maximum efficiency. So maximum muscle building, maximum calorie utilization, so that nothing's really going to waste or going to storage. And that usually takes getting your metabolism working really well first. It takes hormonal balance, getting stress hormones down, getting insulin sensitivity high, and then all you have to do is lift heavy and manipulate macros just slightly. That's pretty much it. What's the coconut oil you use that doesn't have the coconut flavor? That's what makes me not use it. Yeah, hydrogenated coconut oil, so like Tropical Traditions would be a brand that doesn't have a coconutty flavor. I wake up and sneeze daily for a year. I release mucus daily. This never happened before. I eat really well. Is this the body detoxing? I don't know what it is, honestly. It could be maybe like some gut sinus stuff. But I'm not really sure. It could be. Yes, history of UTI and kidney stones. Yeah, I would say maybe the calcium is a problem for you. Are you vitamin K deficient? Because I know you said like your bladder feels really heavy, and then you have a history of kidney stones or calcification and like UTIs. I'm wondering if you need vitamin K to help the calcium gets to where it needs to go, which is the bones and the teeth. And then also magnesium is needed to balance out calcium. So that's what I would consider if you have a history of kidney stones. That's something I would look into. Just want to let you know that I started eating dairy again because of you, and my acne is legit healing faster. Yeah, it's so crazy. There's so many people that literally have healed their acne just by implementing dairy. You guys want to know why? Because dairy is really rich in those fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, and K, and specifically vitamin A, which a lot of people with acne are deficient in vitamin A or have higher needs for vitamin A. And because the liver needs vitamin A to detoxify estrogen properly. And so when you're not eating dairy, where are you getting vitamin A? Like, you're not getting it very much. And so implementing dairy helps your skin heal faster. Seem to be allergic to the brewer's yeast in the vitamin B cookies. Can I try nutritional yeast, or will that not have vitamin B? Yes, nutritional yeast is a perfect replacement. I'm sorry, some people don't do well with brewer's yeast. Is it a coincidence that I've gotten a cold at the beginning of my periods for the last few months, or is it connected to hormone shifts? Oh, it's definitely not a coincidence. Hormone shifts for sure. I wonder if are you doing a raw carrot salad every day leading up to your period? That's something I would consider. Maybe even activated charcoal. There's something being released into the gut that might be causing an immune system shift. Do you have a brand of HCl you recommend to increase stomach acid? Yeah, Doctor's Best for lower dose, or Integrative Therapeutics tends to be my favorite just because it has a higher dose. What can be done to get rid of, I can never say this, I'm sorry, vitiligo. Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. So vitiligo is, it's almost like, can be considered kind of like a hyperpigmentation, but I know it's considered an autoimmune disease, I believe, don't quote me on that, of the pigments producing cells. And so that makes me think it has some type of tie to iron and polyunsaturated fats, similarly to what other autoimmune diseases have in common. And so usually like focusing on lowering polyunsaturated fats in the diet, making sure you're balancing blood sugar so you're not releasing a lot of polyunsaturated fats into the bloodstream, and then dealing with minerals, so making sure iron detoxification is optimized, liver detoxification, gut health, very similar to other autoimmune diseases, but I think that would be like what I would focus on. Where should your iron levels be in a blood test? It just kind of depends. I usually recommend like a full iron, it's called the full Monty iron panel, not just looking at like ferritin. You want to look at hemoglobin. You want to look at it all in context. And it just honestly depends on what lab you're using and what their ranges are. How much magnesium bicarbonate should someone take per day? And should I drink it throughout the day or all at once? If it's diluted, I feel like all at once would be okay unless it gives you diarrhea. But usually the goal for magnesium is around like 5 times the body weight in milligrams, and every fourth a cup of magnesium bicarbonate usually provides around like 100 to 150 milligrams. So I usually do like half a cup to a cup spread throughout the day. I would never do a cup in one sitting. I would dilute it like in my water bottle or something like that. But yeah, I usually would do like half a cup to a cup. But I usually would start at a lower dose and work up to see how my body does. Goat milk okay for reintroducing milk? Yeah, I honestly think it's probably the best place to start because it's A2 dairy. It's easier to digest than cow's milk. Do you have any recommendations for seborrheic dermatitis of the scalp? I've been trying to cure myself of it and get to the root, but I can't figure it out. I honestly used to have it really bad to the point where like I had bloody sores all over my scalp, and getting to the root of my gut issues really helped. I was eating a lot of like paleo type things that were bugging me that I didn't realize, like nuts and seeds, because I was like dairy free, so I ate tons of like nut milks and nut cheese, and that really aggravated me. And then dealing with my estrogen by eating a raw carrot salad every day really helped, and then getting my progesterone levels unchecked really helped. What are your thoughts on quinoa? It's a seed-like grain, so it's going to be a seed. It's going to be one of those baby plants I was talking about. I don't think it's the worst, but I wouldn't say like, ooh, like eat so much quinoa. Like honestly, if I never ate it again, I wouldn't stress about it. If I get headaches, insomnia, and totally lose my appetite, generally feel like crap during the follicular phase, is that a progesterone issue? You know, progesterone comes into play usually during ovulation, so the follicular phase is where estrogen begins to rise, and so I would really focus on liver detoxification and seeing if you're clearing and moving estrogen out of the body properly. But yeah, if it was during, like, I would say it could possibly be a progesterone issue because that does kind of carry over into the next cycle. But I would also focus on like optimizing liver detoxification. Is the protein from quinoa absorbable? No, guys, the protein from plants is not absorbable. Minimal protein coming from plants. Every plant. Doesn't matter what it is. Minimal. That's not where you get protein. I know you've been like ingrained by the powers to be at B that there's protein in plants. There's not protein in plants unless it's really processed and extracted and in the form of like soy protein isolate or pea protein, which is not going to digest very well. There is a difference between animal protein and plant proteins, okay? And they are going to affect your detoxification and how your body's literally built. Because remember, your amino acids are the building blocks of your body. And you are an animal. You are a human being. And so plants are not compatible protein-wise. They're not going to provide you the building blocks you need to thrive. I'm just saying, okay? So ruminant animals like bison, or let's just use cows as examples, they have 3 stomachs. They have a very specific important digestive system that allows them to chew and chew and chew. And then what they do is they swallow it and their stomach kind of digests it and then spits it back up, and they chew and chew and chew. They chew their cud. And what they're doing is they're breaking down all those anti-nutrients and nutrients in plants so that their body, which is made very specifically, can absorb it and assimilate it into their tissues. And it's running through their liver being detoxified. And so their tissues are a high amount of plant nutrients that they have literally pre-broken down for you and filtered through their liver and put into their tissues for you to eat. And so think of meat as that. It is a bioavailable source of absorbable nutrients for you. Plants are not that way. Last time I checked, we don't chew our cud. We don't swallow our grains and then spit them back up and keep chewing them. We don't have gizzards like a chicken that breaks down the phytates in grains, so we just have to understand that plants are kind of a condiment for us. They're not going to be a massive bulk of our diet if we want to thrive, really. Hey, was trying to find that Swanson's vitamin E you recommended, but the ones I found have soy. Do you know where I can find it? Thanks. Right on Swanson's website, it's sunflower vitamin E. And that's the only place I've been able to find it directly from them. Started eating raw carrots every day a few months ago. I'll check out the activated charcoal though. Thanks. Yeah, that's really interesting that your immune system drops so low pre-period. Not sure if you answered already, but I asked on your story if increasing magnesium from 200 milligrams to 300 would cause detox showing of acne. It possibly could. Remember, magnesium is needed for over 400 enzymatic reactions in the body. And so many people are deficient. Every single one of my clients, every single person I've ever run an HTMA on is deficient in magnesium. And when you implement magnesium, interesting things can occur. Sometimes it's oh, I feel incredible. I feel amazing. I'm so relaxed now. And then there's the other types of people who are oh my gosh, I'm getting horrible detox symptoms. I'm moving, they have acne or they're moving metals, because their body has gone so long depleted in this nutrient. Now it has enough, and so it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. So it totally could, and some people need to increase their magnesium a lot more slowly than others. Why do people think milk causes acne, yet it's supposed to help according to you? Worried to start drinking it. Because people blame the milk for what their body's actually doing. When your body can't break down and digest something and it causes inflammation, it's not the food's fault. It's the body is imbalanced and needs to be supported. And so a lot of people blame the milk, but they actually have hypothyroidism or they have low progesterone, which are both things needed to break down milk properly. In addition, some people will blame dairy as the source of all their problems, when in reality they're having ice cream that has tons of additives, for example, carrageenan or locust bean gum. Those are gut irritants and liver irritants. They impair detoxification sometimes for up to 24 hours after you eat them. And so, it's very important to understand the type of dairy we eat matters. What's in our dairy matters. It should just be milk. It shouldn't be milk and guar gum and added vitamin B and all these things. And so a lot of people are blaming dairy for a completely different issue at hand. And it's mostly just people are not smart or they don't know. Unfortunately, some people have a hard time debating with them because they just don't have knowledge to even understand where I'm coming from. Sometimes I'm you can't argue with stupid, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm just I don't know what to say, because I'm looking at it from a perspective of I'm not going to blame a traditional food like dairy for that we've eaten for so long and relied on for so long as nutrients and sustenance for something that all of a sudden in our society, everyone's sensitive to dairy. Everyone's allergic to milk. There's a reason. It's not the dairy's fault. It's not all of a sudden the dairy's the problem. We're the problem. And so if we're not digesting it, or it's causing a symptom, it's expressing a symptom like acne, there's something happening internally that is not allowing us to digest it properly, or it's causing inflammation for some reason, and we have to get to the bottom of why our body's reacting that way. Not the other way around and just say oh, I'm cutting dairy and oh, it made all my problems better. If you eat dairy and it expresses that problem again, there's still a problem. It's just not expressing itself in the same way as when you weren't eating it. So a lot of people say oh, cutting dairy healed my acne, and then they eat dairy and their acne pops up, and I'm didn't heal your acne, because your acne is there. So something else is going on in the digestive system that's a problem. And that's usually the case. People have really bad bacterial overgrowth. They have a lot of intestinal irritants, or a lot of people will they'll try to implement dairy again, and they're eating a ton of other irritating foods. And so they're not realizing that those other foods are causing irritation. And then when they consume the dairy, it's just not being digested properly. It's not the dairy itself, it's the other irritating foods in their diet. They're eating tons of nuts and seeds, tons of almond butter, they're living off of cruciferous vegetables, and they're irritating the heck out of their digestive tract. And then they drink dairy and they're like, oh my God, I got a pimple. And I'm like, your gut is literally rubbed raw from your diet. Like, what do you expect? So there's a lot of caveats to dairy. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are fearmongers or say like, oh, dairy's bad for you, they just don't get it. They're not willing to look any further. And I don't like that. I'm not down for that. What do you recommend to optimize liver detoxification? Well, I usually like to do a hair tissue mineral analysis because it's just so informative. It's so helpful. And it's something that can tell you if calcium's low, magnesium's low, sodium, potassium's low, like if your minerals are low. But keep in mind, there's 3 phases of detoxification. Your liver goes through 2 phases, and then phase 3 is once your liver excretes that into the digestive tract, then it's going to come out in the colon, it's going to come out in the kidneys, or it's going to come out and go through the urine, or it's going to come out of the skin. And so phase 1 detoxification requires lots of antioxidants, so vitamin E, B vitamins, vitamin C, and you got to make sure you get plenty of those. And I like grass-fed beef liver for that. I also really like chlorophyll for that phase 1 detoxification because it's very rich in magnesium and copper. And so that's why I recommend the detox lemonade in Fully Nourished. It's just a splash of chlorophyll, 2 tablespoons of cranberry concentrate, and the juice of half a lemon or a lime, and some milk thistle, which is going to support phase 1 of liver detox. And then phase 2 of liver detox is all reliant upon amino acids or protein. And so glycine is specifically important, and that's going to be found in gelatin, bone broth, collagen, oxtails, anything gelatinous or collagenous. Glutamine is also another very important amino acid in phase 2 detoxification. And so that's why in Fully Nourished, I'm teaching you to nourish yourself, because nourishment equals really good detoxification. And then once your liver goes through 2 phases optimally, you have the nutrients to go through optimal detoxification, then you got to make sure that once it gets dumped into the colon or the kidneys or the skin, it's mobilizing and it's getting out. So having a regular bowel movement is so important. Making sure that you're supporting detoxification by sweating and moving is so important so it can get out of the skin. Making sure that you are supporting detox, whether it's like castor oil packs or coffee enemas, or just making sure you're getting extra nutrients in the form of like grass-fed beef liver is very, very helpful to optimize detoxification. Detox baths are excellent, so sweating through your skin with baking soda and Epsom salts is awesome. So those are kind of my top recommendations, but I have a whole lesson in Fully Nourished on liver detoxification. Why chlorophyll over other green stuff? I didn't really say over other green stuff. I just think chlorophyll is a more concentrated source of magnesium and copper, I don't think it's like superior to other green stuff. It's just like those are not going to have a concentrated source of chlorophyll. Also, you guys know I'm not a huge fan. Like, you'd have to eat massive amounts of green vegetables in order to get enough chlorophyll, and that's going to be pretty irritating to the digestive tract. So, I guess you could do like a greens broth if you wanted to drink a concentrate, but it's not going to provide the amount of chlorophyll that you could get by buying chlorophyll. So for someone who's trying to heal, what's a good macro proportion? It just kind of depends on the person. I usually do a hair tissue mineral analysis so I can see if someone's a slow oxidizer or fast oxidizer. Because if someone's a fast oxidizer, they might need to eat more fats than someone who's a slow oxidizer. But yeah, usually about 50% carbs, 25% protein, 25% fat is going to be pretty optimal. If people are really insulin resistant or they've been on a really low carb diet, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally for a really long time. Sometimes it takes having to like start them on a way lower carb diet and then working up slowly over time. So it really depends. Like, it's all about context. If someone's eating, 20 grams of carbs a day or 40 grams of carbs a day, I'm not going to jump them up to like 250 in a day or even a month. It's probably going to take 6 months to get them to that point. So it's just kind of all about context. Thank you for the info. I'll try goat milk. Hope it ends up helping my acne, not worsening it. Might try a probiotic too to heal my gut. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where the gut is usually to blame if dairy is not working. And there's nothing wrong with keeping it out until you can figure out why. It's just blaming the dairy usually doesn't fix the problem. Thank you. I can't wait to sign up for your Fully Nourished program. Awesome. Well, this was like an impromptu live, so I'll be going live tomorrow for my regular Wednesday night live. Thanks for hanging out with me impromptu. But yeah, if you guys think of any questions tomorrow while you're going throughout your day, write them in your notes on your phone so we can answer them tomorrow while we're live. And then I, of course, will go through the question and answer box and answer them in my stories. Usually I do that on the weekend. So if you don't see me answer them, I usually do them like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or early next week. Preferred probiotic. It's going to be Just Thrive probiotic, the spore-based probiotic, or Megaspore biotic, whatever one you can get your hands on. Megaspore, you usually have to get it through a practitioner. Like, personally, I could get Megaspore, but the general public can't buy Megaspore. So Just Thrive would be a Megaspore that you can get on Amazon. All right, guys, good night. Thanks for spending time with me.